talk about. So the first thing I'm going to do is share into a couple of slides. So you should be seeing some slides now. So let's start as normal, go through these bits. So yeah, business agility. So what we're looking at, this is webinar 10, as I've said. You can see all the previous 9 webinars on YouTube. Just go onto the RadTech YouTube channel and you'll see the previous 9 webinars where we talked about, what is business agility. The last things we talked about, last 2 webinars was, well, one was innovation and creativity, and the other one was about visual thinking and visual communication. So things that are absolutely the core of business agility. This one's about how to be an amazing Scrum Master. So let's have a look at that. But before we start, apologies to those of you who've been here before. You'll have seen me go through this. But for those of you who are new, just to introduce myself. So my name's Pete Measy. The company I work with is a company called RadTech, and actually it's a company I formed in '98 with a few other people. RadTech's now a multi-million-pound international organisation. I used to be the CEO of RadTech until about 2-3 years ago, when we took someone else on to be the CEO. Now I'm sort of semi-retired, so I still do things, a bit of consultancy, mainly training and webinars, this sort of stuff, to share a bit of experience. Started in information technology in '83. So my main background is IT, but obviously having started up what is now a multi-million-pound international business, I've also got a bit of business experience running businesses as a CEO. Worldwide specialist in Agile, Lean, Kanban, all that sort of good stuff. Certified in all sorts of different things. One of the things I am certified actually is in Scrum. I'm a certified Scrum trainer. So, talking about Scrum Master capability, amazing Scrum Masters, it's the sort of thing I do every day, really, as a certified Scrum trainer. Talk about that. I used to be a director of a non-for-profit called the DSDM Consortium, what is now known as the Agile Business Consortium. So yeah, contributing a bit back to the environment there. Lead editor and author of the book you're seeing on this slide, Agile Foundations, Principles, Practices and Frameworks. So yes, wrote that, it's probably 5-6 years ago now. Sold 4,600 copies the last time I looked. Which puts it in sort of like the top 50 Agile books, which is good. Fellow of the Agile Business Consortium, obviously, and I used to be an adjunct professor of Agile Project Management at Hull University. That's not sort of like a real professor, that's a lecturer. So I used to lecture on this sort of stuff at Hull University. So that's a brief introduction of myself. What we're looking at today is this: how to be an amazing business Scrum Master. So first of all, we'll just have a quick look at why business agility. Now, as I say in the earlier webinars, looked at this in a lot more detail. So I'm not planning to spend a huge amount of time on why we should use business agility or agile in business. Please have a look at the earlier webinars if you want to understand that a bit more. We'll have a look at agile facilitation and coaching, 2 core parts of the Scrum Master skill set. How we service the development team, people who develop the business outcomes, the business products. Service of the product owner, the person who owns those delivery of the product, making sure we're delivering the right product. So we'll look at how we actually interact with the product owner as an amazing Scrum Master. Servicing the organization as a whole, thinking about transformational type stuff. How do we help the organization transform to use agile capability? How can we get them to think of us as an amazing Scrum Master? And then Scrum Mastery, a few hints and tips on good stuff to think about, the core of what being a great Scrum Master is really all about. So that'll take us about an hour, take us to around 1:30 as per normal. I've got a few interactive bits as we go through, a few slides. I might draw a few pictures depending on what the questions are that come up or not. So we'll see how we go as we go forward. I've then got the following 4 fortnightly webinars, and what I'm thinking is the next one I'll do is probably about measurement. How do we measure success in the agile world, the business agile world? What sort of things should we be measuring? That's pretty much a hot topic typically. So that will be in 2 weeks' time, 19th of August. And then for those of you who are here, if you're interested in me talking about something in relation to business agility, whatever it is, just ping me an email. You can see my email ID at the bottom here, or get in contact with me on LinkedIn. And I'll do an hour on that. I'll do a webinar on that. But the next one, measuring success, hopefully that should be of interest as well. So why business agility? Well, this is the bottom line, really. People in Agile talk about VUCA. So what does VUCA stand for? Well, VUCA stands for volatility, the rate of change that occurs in the business world nowadays. The U stands for uncertainty. So we're even unclear about the present, never mind the future. I mean, God knows what's going to happen in a few weeks' time with everything else that's going on, Brexit, China and US trade negotiations, the COVID-19 nightmare, God knows. So very uncertain, ambiguous, lack of clarity about what's actually really going on, and complexity. The business world is very complex now. So certainly my personal business experience is the world is a lot more VUCA now than even like it was 5 years ago. It's incredibly more VUCA compared to when I formed Ragtag in '98. So the world is becoming more and more volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So what does that mean? Well, if we try to use traditional legacy type delivery approaches and management approaches, things like waterfall, RUP, things like this, more legacy sort of old school stuff, it's not really designed for this world. So Agile is designed for this world. So Agile thinking is designed for this VUCA world, and the previous 9 webinars talk about that in a lot of detail. So yeah, rather than spending a lot of time in there, let's move on a bit. So over to you, really. So over to you on the old chat. Gives me a chance to have a bit of my coffee as well. Over to you on chat. In your opinion, what defines Scrum and/or Agile? So if you put comments on chat, I'll then be able to see those comments and see what you're actually raising. So what defines Scrum or Agile? What do you reckon? Adaptability, yeah, John, certainly. Transparency, Alexander, yeah. That transparency is one of the core Scrum values. Self-organization, certainly. Fast feedback, yes. We're working in an iterative, incremental way in Agile. Small increments, so we can do iterations based on feedback. Yeah, trust, empiricism, empirical thinking. Yep, certainly. Cross-functional working, collaboration. Yep, great stuff. Interrupted delivery. Yeah, you've got some accountability and honesty. That's a good one, Philippa. Yeah, honesty, certainly. Accountability. We often talk about empowerment within the Agile world. Well, the flip side of empowerment is accountability. So teams that are empowered are also accountable. Continuous learning, yeah, definitely. We talk about continuous learners. Transparency, Lewis, yeah, great stuff. Yeah, again, as usual, absolutely brilliant list. So let's have a look at what we actually came up on here. So yeah, in essence, what is Scrum and Agile about? Well, it's really about values. You've probably heard people saying this, but Agile is very much about being Agile and not just doing Agile. Now, obviously, we're going to have processes, we're going to have techniques, we're going to have all that sort of good stuff, as you'd expect. We can't just say to people, thou art now Agile, go and do it, or thou art now Scrum, go and do it as a Scrum Master. We need to give some guidance. But it's really, as a Scrum Master, we're all about making sure that the organization, the team, everybody is adhering to Scrum values. It's about being Agile. It's about thinking in an Agile way. Will that happen overnight? Not in my experience. So we need to be working with the organization and the team to enable that to occur. So I've got a few ideas here. As we can see, the things here in the major sort of black capital things, these are the core Scrum values: focus, courage, openness, commitment, and respect. But also we've got the 12 principles from the Agile Manifesto. If you want to see these, just to put in www.agilemanifesto.org, and you will see the 4 values and 12 principles of Agile. The core Scrum values are these. So very much as an amazing Scrum Master, it's about making sure that we realign to these values. Hey, there's lots of other Agile values as well, Scrum values as well. Visual communication there, top left. Visual thinking, yeah. I'm sure we've all heard of information radiators, cumulative flow charts, these sorts of things, storyboards, Kanban boards, vision canvases, business model canvases. All of these things I'm naming here, they're all very, very visual. So it's about communicating visually so people can get a good idea of what we're doing, why we're going in the direction we're going, how we're doing things. One of the reasons we do this is to stop noise with the team. So stop interruptions to the team. So yeah, a value, visual communication. Flexibility, I think you highlighted on your list, yes. Systems thinking, we'll have a look at a little bit later. We've looked at it once or twice in previous webinars, but we'll have a look at that again a little bit later. Design thinking, we'll also have a look at this idea, the values behind systems and design thinking. Leadership values, Agile leadership. The first 5 webinars, I think it was, or maybe 6, we're really focused more in on Agile leadership. So yes, we need to make sure that's in place. Emergence. So we need to make sure we get emergent designs, emergent plans, emergent tests, emergent capabilities, emergent delivery, emergent everything. So in other words, the way the world works, we need to make sure that everything emerges over time. So yes, amazing Scrum Master, it's about making sure at the end of the day that we're aligning into these things, the 4 values, the 12 principles, and the 5 values of Scrum. That's really what we're focusing on. So, okay, fair enough. If that's what Scrum and Agile is, and at the end of the day, when we think about Agile, if we wanted a single sentence for what Agile's about, it's really about delivering value on a fit-for-purpose basis. It's delivering value on a fit-for-purpose basis, or continuous delivery of value. Because as we deliver value to the business, that therefore means we've delivered a small increment of value. The business can give us feedback on that small increment of value. We can therefore learn from that small increment of value, and we can adapt as we go forward. So very much empirical thinking. So why have a Scrum Master? So once again, if we can just go into chat again. So in synopsis, why does the Scrum Master exist? So what, we're talking about amazing Scrum Masters here, but why have Scrum Masters in the first place? Why do they exist? Love that one. Relentless improvements from Pradeep. Yeah, definitely. Adapting to unknown situations by using empirical thinking, Dina. Yeah, certainly. Pulling the team together, Daniel. Absolutely. Will teams naturally form? Yes, but it comes down to how long it will take to do that. we want to happen that sooner rather than later. Helping teams understand the value of the Scrum practice. Yeah, that's really key, Joshua. We want the team to be thinking, doing, being Scrum and Agile. So they need to understand what the value is. Enabling the team, Albert, yes, certainly. Help the team understand Agile and Scrum, John, yeah, fantastic. Protecting the team, that's an interesting word, Nathavan, yeah, absolutely, definitely. Ensure dev team and PO can work at their best, yeah. Make sure the team lives by the Scrum values, certainly, yeah. Sustainable pace, encourage the team to work at a sustainable pace, so we don't want people burning out. Apart from having a business responsibility, if people burn out, then our productivity will go down. But we also obviously have a moral responsibility. We want people to be, good stuff. Facilitation, yes. To ask difficult questions, Alexandra, is a really good one. That's a really good one. Yes, and that takes courage. Remember, we had the 5 values of Scrum, courage. Well, it takes courage to ask difficult questions, and it takes courage to talk to organizations and think about, perhaps mentioning things to them that they don't want to hear. So, yeah, fantastic. And then be a change agent at all levels, yeah. Great stuff here from Philippa. Scrum Masters are masters of flow, certainly. Flow systems thinking. Build an environment where people feel empowered, definitely. Remember, the flip side of empowerment is accountability. Coaching Agile principles, connecting with the wider business, overall building great products, relationships and outcomes. Top notch, great stuff. Improve on maturity, yeah, from Pradeep again, yeah, brilliant. So once again, absolutely brilliant list. So so why have a business Scrum Master? So what we're talking here about is amazing business Scrum Masters. Yes, not just IT, obviously. Well, I always think about asking myself a few questions, or asking people I'm interacting with a few questions. Why do we need a business Scrum Master? Well, does change just happen? Yes. If we look at nature, if we look at evolution, change will just happen. However, how fast will that change happen? So in other words, does change happen fast enough for survival? Well, when we're talking in an incredibly VUCA business world, as it is today, we really need to be changing really, really fast. We need to be interacting with the business environment, not only inside our own business, but also external to the business. We need to be looking at what's going on in the market, and we need to be working in a very empirical way. So we need to be constantly inspecting and adapting, and we need to be constantly very, very transparent about the direction we're going. So empirical thinking basically is inspect, adapt, and transparency. So we put value out there. We see how it's going, sometimes called experiment and pivot. So we do a small chunk of value, we put it out there, small increment of value, we put it out there either with stakeholders or hopefully live. What we can then do is that is basically an experiment to tell us something about the market. Based on that experiment, we can then pivot and decide to go this way or that way or this way or that way or this way. So yes, does that just happen naturally? Not typically. So the Scrum Master, we need to be there to make sure that change happens and it happens fast enough. Do business systems continually improve fast enough to create thriving businesses? Some do. Some that are already aligned into business agility, yes, they'll do that. So, business agility, making sure we deliver value continuously, or we deliver value on a fit-for-purpose basis. So some do that. Some organizations do that naturally. I know when I've worked with gaming organizations, for example, organizations that write games, they tend to work like that. But would a very large public sector organization or a very large bank or insurance corporation operate like that? Probably not. So Scrum Master, yeah, we need to be there to help the organization realize what other competitive organizations are doing, and we need to help them actually improve, continually improve fast enough. Sometimes people talk about a distinction between agile transformation and agile business. And some people would argue that there's no such thing as agile transformation. I don't personally agree with that. I think there is both, actually, agile transformation and business agility. And let me explain why. So business agility, continuous improvement of products, outcomes, the way we work, continually improving as we go forward. Obviously, we need to make sure our products and outcomes continually improve because we want to stay relevant in the market, but we also need to make sure we continually improve the way we're doing things. So that's sort of business agility. How do we get there? Well, the business won't do that magically. Yes, we need amazing Scrum Masters there to enable that to occur, and it will take time. Sometimes what organizations do is they use traditional waterfall thinking to implement changes in the organization. So in other words, they try and do everything all at once, and they do a big bang. They try and do a big bang transformation of the way the business works and the values of the business. In my experience, that doesn't work unless there is a huge change driver, such as, if a boat's sinking, we all need to bail the water. That's a big change driver. But if the boat's not sinking, you might have problems getting people to bail water if they can't see what the problem is. So yeah, basically, we need to make sure that either people can see that big change driver for business agility and for agile transformation. So in essence, agile transformation is getting to the point that the business will continually improve. So it's transforming to the point that the business then continuously improves. So in my experience, you do need transformation to get to business agility. And that's where we come in, obviously, amazing Scrum Masters come in. Will an organization change mindset and culture because a manager or anyone else says it must? Not in my experience. No matter who's saying we must do this. I've seen numerous occasions where large organizations have a new CEO or CIO or CMO or whatever. They turn up and they say, okay, the 80,000 people who work in our organization, we now must do X. And what will happen is everyone will say, yes, we definitely must do X, and we are now doing X. And here's the proof we're doing X. 2 years later, when that CEO leaves, oh, look, we've stopped doing X all of a sudden because they haven't believed in it, whatever it is. So no, just because somebody says, hey, let's do this, doesn't necessarily mean that the organization or the teams are actually going to do that. We need to sell the concept to the team. They need to see what the benefit is. It's where amazing Scrum Masters fit in. Do businesses regularly remove complacency? And what I mean by this is sometimes businesses get very complacent. They are the market leader. They've been the market leader for a long time. The way they operate seems to be very, very effective. It's all marvelous. It's all brilliant. Competitor comes in from left field, the digital disruptor, for example, they're out of business. 6-9 months later, they're out of business. And I'm sure we can all name organizations, Woolworths, Nokia, BlackBerry. I'm sure we can all name organizations that this has happened to. They're the market leader, they become complacent, something comes in from left field, especially digital disruptors. Just look at the banking and insurance industry, especially digital disruptors, and then, whoa, big problem. So the amazing Scrum Master is always thinking about stopping the business becoming complacent, stopping the teams, the programs becoming complacent. What are we doing? Is it really gaining value? The only way you can do that in a VUCA world is by producing small increments, iteratively, and having agile values. Do people in business prefer to change or prefer the status quo? Interesting question. My experience is, and I'm not saying I'm right, I'm just saying it's my experience is, the vast majority of people prefer the status quo because, change can be what is technically known as a pain in the arse. Human beings generally do not like change. Some people do. Some organizations do. But regularly, they want the status quo. So we need to find a way to remove the organization away from that status quo. That's what the amazing Scrum Master does for the team, the organization, etc. Will the core Scrum and Agile values just happen organically? Yes, they will. However, the chances are that the business will go out of business before that happens in a VUCA world. So again, the amazing Scrum Master doesn't just say to people, oh, look, we have to do this. So that's not going to work. The amazing Scrum Master finds a compelling way, understanding the context of the way the business works, understanding the context of the business, finds a way to get people within that context to understand the benefit that will occur for them with agile ways of working. What we then do is, once people are actually bought into that, okay, fair enough, I can see that these values are probably going to help, we then measure it. We then measure it and prove it. As we measure it and prove it, people can actually see the real benefit that's occurring. Then we can anchor that, what's known as anchor that change within the organization. And that's when we can really start moving forward and, creating real change in the organization. So those are the sorts of questions I would ask is, people sometimes say to me, well, Pete, we are very agile. Our organization is very agile. Excuse me a minute. We are very agile and our teams are very Scrum. So why do I need Scrum Masters? Well, that's why you need Scrum Masters. We need to continuously improve. We need to do a transformation to get to that level of continuous improvement, business agility, and then we need to continuously improve from that point. But the chances are that continuous improvement will not occur unless we have people there who are focused on enabling that to occur. That's the amazing Scrum Master. So, and I'm talking here about business things again, not just about IT or marketing or HR. I'm talking about the whole business. Superb. So what is a business Scrum Master? Well, that's a big subject. I mean, for example, I do certified Scrum Master courses where I spend 2 days talking about this. So this is this is quite a big subject. But in synopsis, we're going to bring agile thinking. There are loads of things in agile nowadays. But back in the old days, agile used to be, the 4 values, the 12 principles, and a few bits and bobs. Well, actually, in the real old days, 94, when I started in agile, the Agile Manifesto didn't exist. Nowadays, 2020, there's a lot within agile. You could almost consider agile to be an umbrella for lots of other stuff, practices, frameworks, but it's all about the values, as we were saying before, being agile. So Scrum Master, an amazing Scrum Master, brings agile thinking, obviously agile knowledge. So it's quite a wide area of knowledge that we need as a Scrum Master, and agile experience. It's really key that the Scrum Master has experience of interacting with people, organizations, product owners, teams, and we know where the bear pits are. We know where the difficulties are going to occur. Anybody can read a book, which is great. There's nothing wrong with reading books, but the Scrum Master needs to have practical experience, really. So that's what we are. Respects the organization, individuals being coached, and have the context. So as I was saying earlier, the first step really when we're going down an agile route is to understand what the context of the business is that we're interacting with, or the team, or the human beings, or whatever. Once we understand that context, we can then make sure that we talk within that context. So, a way to consider this is the first question I ask any organization, and have done for the last 20 years, when doing consultancy gigs, or alternatively when working in the organization, the first question I ask is what we're doing now perfect, or is it at least good enough to achieve what we want to achieve? So in essence, the question I'm asking there is, what context are you working within, and is it enabling you to get what you want? And obviously, as a Scrum Master, if the answer to that question from the people you are interacting with is yes, everything we do is perfect, you're going to have a bit of a problem selling anything new. You might need to get them to self-realize before you actually start talking about agile or whatever it is you're trying to sell into the organization. But you've got to understand the context. Sadly, and it doesn't happen a lot nowadays, but sadly, back in the day, I've seen some agile coaches, in inverted commas, or agile experts who are good people, but perhaps not very experienced. They go into an organization, they don't understand the context, they ignore the context, and all they do in the worst scenario, I've seen blogs, etc., and tweets basically saying, oh, this organization is full of morons who don't understand agile, aren't they stupid? No, it's about understanding the context within which you're operating, and the skill of the amazing Scrum Master is to make sure we communicate in that context so people understand what the value is. Know that, we're there to transition the team, the organization, the product owner to a new normal. The new way of working, business agility, whatever that is. So that means that, as I suggested a little bit earlier on, we need to sell it in a way that people understand it in their context, but we also need to measure it. We need to prove that this way of working is better. Hey, the next webinar I'll do will be on measurement, and I've got a slide or two in here about measurement, but at the end of the day, in Agile, what do we measure at the end of the day? Well, at the end of the day is, are we producing value? Good luck with defining what value means. That can be a really big subject. I might do a webinar on defining value. So are we delivering value? Are we delivering value fast enough? So looking at the market segment that we're interacting with, how fast do our competitors deliver? Would we get any benefit from delivering faster, slower, same time period? How fast are we delivering value? and is the customer satisfied? So at the end of the day, are we delivering value? Are we delivering value fast enough? Is the customer satisfied? So there's a plethora of other measures we should look at, but at the end of the day, those are the basics. The amazing Scrum Master is going to look at removing impediments. The amazing Scrum Master is going to look at protecting the team from noise, interruptions, in other words, protecting the team from negative behavior. Human beings are human beings. Sometimes we have difficult human beings. Well, we need to protect the team from those people. So particularly anything that's slowing down the team or reducing their delivery capability or their agile capability. One thing I would suggest is, in my experience again, where businesses have tried to go for an agile capability, but they've sort of done it in the wrong way. They've done it in sort of like a big bang waterfall way, try and change everything all at once. What typically happens is you might get 5, 10, 15% of the organization who actually do start working in an effective agile way. The rest don't, because you've tried to do it in a big bang. You've tried to bite off too much at one time. What can then happen is the organization says, well, we're not doing this agile thing anymore because it's not working for us, because the transformation hasn't worked, basically. And then they fall back to more traditional waterfall. What typically happens then is the 15% of people who did actually change, they're gone. There's no way in a million years they'll go back to working the traditional way. So you lose those people. So remove impediments, shield the team, make sure the team's not slowed down, removing noise from the team. It's what amazing Scrum Masters do. Lift the team forwards even without being present. Now, this is about the art of coaching and facilitation. It's about making sure that the team understands the values and they're being agile. They understand what's the value of doing what they're doing. If they don't understand the value of what they're doing, is typically when the Scrum Master goes on holiday or goes to a meeting or whatever, the team will say, I'll tell you what, daily scrums, pain in the arse. Let's not do that anymore. Sprint reviews, nah, too difficult. Let's not do that anymore. In other words, they don't understand the value. So the amazing Scrum Master, the team change themselves, or either the team change themselves or they think they are changing themselves. I'll come back onto this a little bit later on. So that's what the amazing Scrum Master do. However, we also need to make sure that we're not acting as a mentor or trainer. We're not consistently telling the team all the time we need to do this, because if we do that, the team will never self-organize. And obviously a key tenet of working in Agile is we respect brilliant people, and Agile from a people perspective is largely about enabling brilliant people to be brilliant as an amazing Scrum Master. We respect people. We need to make sure that we're not telling those brilliant people what to do all the time, because if we do, they'll never self-organize, and we need self-organizing teams. So starting to introduce the idea of amazing Scrum Masters. I'll just have a quick look at chat, see if anybody's raised any issues. Yes, Melanie, certainly. Melanie's asking, will I circulate a recording afterwards? Yes, I've got all nine of the previous webinars on the Ratat YouTube, and this one will be as well. I am recording this, and I'm just checking there, just double checking. I am recording it. That's it. So at the end of the day, there's three main roles in Scrum. Scrum Master, Product Owner, Development Team. So broadly, what do these roles do? Well, the Product Owner is about building the right thing. So as the name suggests, Product Owner, the person who owns the product. So they're about building the right thing and building the thing in the right order at the end of the day. Delivery Team, they're about building the thing right. So they're about making sure that the way we build whatever this is, a new marketing campaign, a new HR process, whatever it is, that thing is built correctly, that it has within it the business and technical quality, so it's going to operate for the period we want it to operate for, and it has the robustness to be scalable to whatever level we want to scale it. So the Product Owner is about building the right thing. Delivery Team is about building the thing right. Scrum Master, building the thing fast and well. Yeah, that's sort of part of what we do, but really what we're about is enabling continuous improvement. It's about enabling brilliant people and brilliant teams to be brilliant. It's about enabling that continuous improvement so the team can get the benefit they want to get out of this. They can evolve in the way they want to move forward, and we are consistently and measurably producing more value faster, if faster makes sense, more value faster, and also the customer's more satisfied. So we as a Scrum Master, the amazing Scrum Master, there can be an inappropriate balance. So in other words, let's say, for example, we and the delivery team are working very, very effectively together. Well, in that situation, you're going to get the right thing. You're going to get the thing built right, and it's going to be continuous delivery and nice and fast and effective. The problem is you may well be building the wrong product because the product owner is not involved. Or let's say that the product owner and the Scrum Master are working very closely together. Well, okay, that means we're getting the right business product and we might be building it fast. However, we're not building the thing right. So in other words, you might get lots of what's called technical debt. So the team are taking lots of shortcuts and we're not actually building the thing right. So the bottom line is, for the amazing Scrum Master, it's that balance in the middle. We need to make sure there's a good balance between what's going on. We're building the right product, we're building the thing right, we're spending time on thinking about refactoring out technical debt, all this sort of good stuff. Yeah, so the amazing Scrum Master. Yeah, there's sort of 4 basic modes of amazing Scrum Mastership. These are they. So we can see here: teaching, mentoring, coaching, facilitating. So just a quick introduction. Teaching and mentoring is really more about telling people about stuff. So if you're running a training course, you'd be telling people about X, Y, Z, whatever it is. Mentoring is really more about one-to-one support. So mentoring, once again, is really, saying to people, or teams actually, or saying to people, this is what we should consider. This is the direction we should go down. Excuse me again. Now that's fine. What we need to do as an amazing Scrum Master is have a concept called situational leadership. And what I mean by that is we need to understand the situation that we're operating in when we think about how we're actually going to lead the team. We'll talk about servant leadership in a minute, but talk about how to lead the team. So teaching and mentoring is very much about broadcast. This is the right way to do things. This is what we should consider, all that sort of good stuff. Now, for a team that's very inexperienced, that would be the correct interaction. However, we want the team to be self-organizing. The team will never self-organize if we're just broadcasting to them all the time. Therefore, as soon as possible, we need to move away from broadcasting and we need to move much more into coaching and facilitating. So coaching and facilitating is much more about working with the team to help the team self-adjust and self-improve. So situational leadership is about understanding what's the situation of the team. So I worked with a ratings agency a while ago down in Canary Wharf. And the difficulty they had was they'd been trying to do Agile for, I think it was 6 months, remember right? 3 to 6 months, whatever it was. And the senior management didn't understand why the teams weren't doing Agile in the way that they thought Agile should work. What was happening there was the management had heard about Agile, and they'd heard that Scrum Masters need to be servant leaders, and they'd heard that the Scrum Master needs to be coaching and facilitating the team to do stuff. The problem was the teams didn't know what they were doing. So in other words, they basically didn't know what Agile was. So they hadn't gone through that teaching and mentoring stage about these are the things we need to do before they'd moved into more the coaching and facilitation stage. So the way we solved that was obviously by doing some teaching and mentoring to say, this is what Agile is, here's how it works. These are the sorts of things we should consider. Then we move back into the coach facilitate. And my experience is it takes about a month to 3 months to move from teaching and mentoring to coaching and facilitating. But at the end of the day, the Scrum Master role is really about coaching and facilitation, but we might need to do some mentoring and training up front as well. So with that in mind, let's go in and start talking about some Agile facilitation. So what is facilitation? What do I mean? Well, I mean more than just workshops. Obviously we're going to do facilitated workshops. Most of the interactions that everybody has with everybody else is going to be a facilitated workshop. So in Scrum, for example, the retrospective, facilitated workshop. The sprint review, facilitated workshop. So yeah, I've put a process here for how you would run a workshop. I'll not go through this in detail. If anybody wants to see this, you can look at the recording a bit later on. But yeah, facilitation, I really mean more than just workshop facilitation. Does an amazing Scrum Master have to be an expert workshop facilitator? I wouldn't say an amazing Scrum Master has to be, but put it this way, it's extremely useful that you understand how to shape workshops and how to facilitate effectively. So I would highly recommend, if you don't have this sort of skill set, then get hold of this skill set either via a training course or by pairing with somebody or whatever makes sense. So facilitated workshops. But I also mean facilitation of facilitating the team, facilitating the human beings, facilitating the organization to achieve what they're trying to achieve. Now, one of the things we would think about in facilitation, and I'm going to start talking about design thinking, etc., in a second, is what's called convergent and divergent thinking. So divergent thinking, and I always get this the wrong way around, by the way, But divergent thinking is sort of blue sky thinking. It's about using imagination, creating lots of ideas, brainstorming. It's that sort of mode of thinking, lateral thinking. So yes, we need to use the idea of divergent thinking when we facilitate the teams and the organisation, etc. However, if all we ever do is divergent thinking, we're going to come up with loads and loads and loads and loads of great ideas, but nothing's ever going to happen. We'll never do anything with them. Yes. So we talked about this in creativity and innovation, if any of you were there in that webinar a few weeks ago. Convergent thinking is taking all those ideas and converging down on an answer, on a fact. So it's about coming up with a decision. So quite typically what would actually happen is you would do convergent, divergent, divergent, convergent, etc. So this is the basic design thinking concept. So amazing Scrum Masters, we understand about design thinking. Now, I haven't got time to take you through design thinking in a huge amount of detail, but we've got 4 stages here: discover, define, develop, deliver. Yeah, discover, define, develop, deliver. Those aren't all the stages in design thinking, but they're the basic ones. Now, when thinking about that, when we discover, no great surprise, we're going to be divergent. We're going to use divergent thinking to do that. Yeah, as we discover ideas, we're then going to converge. We're going to converge to define something. So we've discovered what we want to look at. We've now defined the next thing we want to move forward. We're then going to develop it. So we're going to think divergently about developing this asset, and then we're going to think convergently again. So divergent, convergent, etc. Key facilitation technique when we're facilitating teams to move forward. This is a RADTAC thing that's worked really well for us over the years. We sometimes call this the two avocados. So about building the right thing. Yes, there's our interaction as an amazing Scrum Master with the product owner, and about delivering it, about building it. So building the right thing, or finding out what the right thing is to build, and then building the right thing. So we can see here on the left here, we're going to do some discovery and definition, some innovation, working with the market, producing things very quickly, getting some feedback on it, understanding the customer needs, defining the vision, all that sort of good stuff. So this is where we're going to be interacting with the product owner, the innovative and creative teams, thinking about what needs to be there. Yeah, building the right thing, make sure we're building the right thing. And then on the right-hand side here, we can see building it. So this is where we're going to be interacting with the build and test teams, continuous improvement of how we do things, validation that we've got the right things in place. And obviously that's then going to feed back into, again, the discover and define. So develop and deploy feeds back into discover and define, which produces things to develop and deploy, which feeds back into discover and define. And then in the middle there, you've got sort of outstanding outcomes or awesome outcomes. So it's this continuous evolution, continuous facilitation, iterative and incremental delivery, working in a VUCA world. We've got a lot more coming out about this over the next few months, a lot more information about this sort of thing. It's really at the heart of what business agility is, everything in business agility, literally from producing a multi-billion-pound product we want to sell to the way we clean the offices. It's absolutely the heart of everything in business agility. More on that in the coming months. So facilitation models, over to you on chat. What facilitation models have you used or like? Again, if you can just raise some things, then I'll have a look through a few, just mention a few, but over to you, as you always raise such good stuff. What facilitation models have you used or like? So I'll just have a look at chat. Again, gives me a chance to have a quick drink as well. Yeah, oh, fantastic, Pradeep, great stuff. So we've got design thinking there, applied within one of the scaling frameworks called Scaled Agile Framework, or SAFE. So that link there that Pradeep's given us, I would suggest have a look at that. It's really good stuff. Yep. So Lewis has suggested design thinking as one of the facilitation techniques. Certainly. Liberating structures. Yes, we'll have a look at those. Yeah, great stuff. We're going to have a quick look at those in this session. Again, I may well do a whole webinar on liberating structures. It's a really good thing to understand. Yeah, great stuff. All right, good. Let's keep pushing forward. Start with why, golden circles from Adalbert. Yes, I've mentioned this a few times actually through the different webinars. Simon Sinek. So if you're a marketing expert, or you want to understand from a business perspective how we should shape products, I would strongly recommend look at Simon Sinek. Start with why. or the golden circles. And you can see TED Talks from Simon, or this the book, his foundation book, which is called Start With Why. Ask one of the members to present to his or her teammates, then facilitating discussion. Yeah, fantastic way to actually, fantastic way to get information shared. So yeah, great stuff, great stuff. Visual thinking. I'm just going to have a look at a few ideas here, which track back actually to earlier webinars. Visual thinking. Yeah, whenever we run workshops, or whenever we communicate, or whenever we're trying to evolve an idea, my experience is the more visual we can make something, the better. So there's a quote here: 90% of information transmitted to the brain is visual. So it's time to tap into that. Time to tap into that superpower. Yeah. So we need to. Amazing Scrum Masters always think about getting things visualized. Do we need documentation? Well, we need documentation for certain things. You know, chances are you're going to need testing documentation, design documentation. However, we try and make everything as visual as possible. I like this. This is something which I would recommend you have a look at. Tony Schwartz, quite old stuff from '73. So it's called the responsive chord. So communication happens when words and images resonate with a person already embodied, with the person's already embodied values and interests. What does that mean? Well, that means as an amazing Scrum Master, you have to understand the context. Don't just go in there and start spouting a book at people. You have to understand the context, because what you need to do is find a way to make Agile resonate with people's already embodied values and interests. Yeah. So the responsive chord, good thing to have a look at. Visual metaphors and graphic templates are really good. Ways to enable that resonance to occur. So we talked quite a lot about this when we did the innovation and creativity sessions. So that was webinars 8 and 9. So if you understand more about this, I would suggest have a look at webinars 8 and 9. Sorry. Yeah. So liberating structures. This is they. So loads of stuff here. Design storyboards. Yeah. Very excellent thing to look at. Improv prototyping. Yeah. Some people like this sort of thing. Some people don't, or some organizations do like this. Some people don't. But improv is actually an effective way to prototype ideas for how we're actually going to move the business forward. Yeah, loads of stuff here. User experience fishbowl, making sure we're looking at things from the perspective of the user. Critical uncertainties, making sure that we understand what the variability is within this. I mean, you can't exactly understand what the variability is, but what you can look at is what the critical impact of some of the uncertainties are. So, liberating structures, good book. We can see on the right here. I can never pronounce Henry's name. Just to say Henry and Keith. We can see the people who've written this book here. Very good thing to look at as an amazing Scrum Master. These are really useful techniques. And by the way, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of facilitation techniques you can use out there. But liberating structures is a good place to start for the amazing Scrum Master. Remote facilitation. So in the world we are today. Yeah, back in the day, people used to say that you couldn't really do Agile or Scrum remotely. My belief is they've always been wrong. You can do Scrum and Agile remotely. However, when we compare it to physical co-location, will it be as effective? No. There's been loads of studies on that over the years. But will it be nearly as effective? Yes. But it really depends what you're doing. If you're doing something that's creative and innovative, where it is feasible to do so, I'd recommend get people physically together. So in other words, perhaps sorts of things you might do in the left-hand side of the avocado, that tends to be a bit more, if we can get people physically together. Delivering things, developing things, which also needs to be creative and innovative, obviously, but doing that, we can do those sorts of things remotely. So I'm sure all of us nowadays are using remote tooling, and it's interesting. I've seen a number of reports about this COVID-19 nightmare we're going through, and it's saying that when we look at the evolution of business, it's sort of fast-pathed businesses around 10 years. In other words, it's brought it home how essentially important digital business is, and having the ability to interact, not just physically. So it's quite interesting that this nightmare has actually moved business forward quite a bit. It's going to be interesting to see whether that move forward stays in place. But so the amazing Scrum Master, we need to understand that we need to know how to facilitate remotely, and that, obviously there's lots of tools out there nowadays which weren't there 5 or 10 years ago, but there's lots of tools out there nowadays that can help us do that. So that's facilitation. Agile coaching. Let's have a look at a little bit about agile coaching. Now, the amazing Scrum Master, there is a concept that I won't go into in detail, but it's called authentic leadership. Authentic leadership. Human beings are normally very good at picking up inauthentic or unauthentic, whatever the right word is, communication. So in other words, we need to have an understanding of ourselves. We need to have a self-awareness of ourselves. So a few points. To improve yourselves, you must first know yourself. Yeah. So you must understand where you're starting from to think about improving yourself. Now, when we talked about webinar 4 or 5, I think it was, if I remember rightly, that was all focused on that. So how to improve yourself as an agile leader. So if you want to have a look at that, we covered that in detail over webinars. I think it was 4 or 5. Consider the impact of yourself. Consider your cognitive bias. Every human being has a cognitive bias. So we don't want to apply our cognitive bias onto teams, etc., that we're interacting with. I won't just read out the words on here. You can see the slide if you look at the recording a little bit later on. Johari's window, again, which is pretty old school stuff. It's been around longer than I've been working, certainly. It's good to think about Johari's window. So what's known to yourself, what's known to others, what's known to yourself, what's not known to others, what is you think is unknown, what's your blind spot. So it's a good idea to when you're starting on your journey as an amazing Scrum Master, baseline yourself, ground yourself. Where are you starting from, and how can we make sure, this is key, how can we make sure that our own opinions on our own cognitive biases, we are not just enforcing those on other human beings. We need to understand the context, and we need to understand where we are coming from. And I would highly recommend you, as I said in webinar 4, continually ground yourselves back in what you've defined here. So make sure that you are not only being authentic, but you're being authentic to yourself. Very, very important. So yes, as an amazing Scrum Master, we need to understand that. Going to have a very, very quick look at some coaching models. We looked at these previously, or some of these previously. I think the first thing I'd like to make is this the quote from George Box that I really, really like always: all models are wrong, but some are useful. Yeah, that aligns with my understanding. All models are wrong, but some are useful. So first one, well, probably no great surprise, a agile coaching competency framework. Arguable whether this is a model or not. I like this though, because it has a sort of holistic view on what coaching is. It was described in an from the Agile Coaching Institute by Lisa Adkins and Michael Spade. Some of you might have heard of these people, pretty famous in the Agile world. So I would recommend have a look at this. Now, again, we haven't got time on this short webinar to look into this in detail, but it's just giving you an idea, as you can see on the picture here, of the sorts of things the amazing Scrum Master needs to be aware of. And it would be rare that everybody, every Scrum Master is hugely skilled in all of these areas, but we do need to be a specialized generalist. So we might be a specialized professional coach, but we then need to have some experience in facilitation, transformation mastery, business mastery, technical mastery. And me, for example, my own journey, I'm a transformation expert, coaching expert, but I'm not very good technically nowadays. I used to be. But I have an element of understanding technically. I know what continuous integration, test-driven development means, but actually implementing them on the ground, no, I wouldn't have that. So this gives you a good rounded view of the sort of thing the amazing Scrum Master needs to be a specialized generalist within. So it's a good model. Spotify model, I'm sure some of us have heard of. Yeah, it's good stuff. Heinrich Nyberg, well worth having a look at. The key thing to understand with the Spotify model is that it's what they were doing about 8-9 years ago. And it's arguable whether Spotify actually really did this stuff or not. Certainly some teams did. But, it's good stuff. I would recommend having a look at this and using this as basically a toolbox to think about, what sort of things an amazing Scrum Master could I coach and enable within the organization. So it's worth a look. Great book from Rachel and Liz here, Rachel Davies, Liz Sedley, Agile Coaching. I'd highly recommend, as an amazing Scrum Master, read this book. So again, this makes some suggestions for how we can interact with people. Flow, we can see there, one of the things mentioned on chat a bit earlier on was making sure we have effective flow. We've talked about that in earlier webinars, but yes, again, I won't go through all this detail we can see on the slide here. I would recommend have a look at this slide after the webinar when I put the webinar recording out. And I would recommend, if you want to be an amazing Scrum Master, have a look at that book, Agile Coaching, good model. Shuhari, Shuhari. Yeah, I'm sure some of you have heard of Shuhari. So the idea with Shuhari is the basic step for the Scrum Master is to basically practice the rules themselves. So, the Scrum Master needs practical experience. It's not just about reading a book and spouting a book at people. It's about having practical experience. The best way to get that is, hey, I would recommend read some books. I would recommend join some meetup groups. But at the end of the day, certainly my experience is pair with people. Try and identify somebody in your organization or in the market who you respect and you think, has got the right sort of communication style for what you want to do. Pair with them and start to practice the rules. Yeah. Once you start to understand the rules, you can then start to bend the rules. Any really effective, amazing Scrum Master, you're never going to get a team that just bang, all of a sudden, Friday they weren't agile, Monday they are. Friday they weren't doing Scrum, Monday they are. So you're going to have to bend the rules in the real world, but you need to understand what rules are you bending and what's the implication of bending those rules. That's where the amazing Scrum Master comes into play. And then the really amazing Scrum Master, we start to create new rules. So, we actually start to create new stuff, put that into the market, get people's feedback on it. So Shuhari, practice, bend, create. As you get more experience, then obviously you can create new rules and coaching stances. Maintain neutrality, I would suggest. Don't force your cognitive bias onto people. Serve the client's agenda. At the end of the day, Agile isn't about doing perfect Agile. Scrum Master is not about doing perfect Scrum. It's about enabling the client to achieve whatever it is the client wants to achieve in the most effective way we can achieve it, and then continuously improving. So we need to be serving the client agenda. Reduce client dependence. Would we need Scrum Masters going into the future? Definitely. We always need Scrum Masters. Would we need an amazing Scrum Master who's really, really experienced? Possibly not. As the team becomes self-organizing, we may put in a more junior Scrum Master, someone at the shoe sort of level, or the half sort of level. Would you need somebody at the re-level on every team? Probably not. So we need to be reducing client dependence on us as we go forward. Not just colluding with everything. As I say, courage is one of our 5 rules. We need to make sure that we're courageous and we are actually helping the organization change. Signature presence, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, or authentic leadership. Make sure that you're coming across authentically. That's about grounding yourself regularly, as I suggested a bit earlier. Active listening, communication. The vast majority of communication is all about listening, especially as a Scrum Master. We need to be listening to the organization, the team, what's going on, all this sort of stuff. Watch out for hidden agendas. Probably an obvious one. Powerful questions. We need to think about how to shape questions. So if I'm going to talk to a difficult stakeholder, for example, who's perhaps causing lots of noise for the team, I wouldn't just walk in there. I'd be thinking about what questions do I want to ask in what way, and how can I try and get that person's buy-in for the direction that we want to go. So powerful questions. Articulating. So, amazing Scrum Masters are typically pretty articulate in a verbal and written communication style. Clearing, making sure that we constantly clear. We might have with the team been through some difficult stuff, possibly. Well, we need to clear that before we move on to the next thing. Make sure that things are cleared. Celebrate success. When we've had success with things, recognize people in the organization and the team who are doing fantastic things. All of this of clearing. And then neutrality, I think, which I've probably mentioned. Service and development team, as we move into the final bits of what we're looking at here. Well, development teams should be feature teams, systems thinking. We want to make sure that whoever the team are, they are able to produce value from the business. So we don't really want teams that are just IT people or just HR people or just marketing people. We want to create business teams that have the ability to produce value for the customers. Yeah. Now, the customers might be internal to our business or the customers might be external to our business, but we want teams that can do that. Typically, feature teams are dedicated in relation to a particular outcome, particular features that enable an outcome. They're typically dedicated to that. Self-organizing, I've talked about. Coordinated. So we need to make sure that the team is self-organizing, coordinating itself with help from us. Long-lived. Most feature teams are pretty long-lived. They not only develop the capability, they support and maintain the capability. Multi-skilled, T-shaped, specialized generalists, people who can do more than one thing. They might be experts in one thing, but they can do other things as well. And physically or virtually collocated. And yes, I'm not going to read this slide out. You can see this a bit later on when you can look back at the recording. But yeah, it's absolutely essential that the team self-organize. It's a core precept and concept within agile thinking, and it's our job as the amazing Scrum Master to enable that occur. That's largely about what I was talking about earlier. Stop mentoring and training, start coaching and facilitating, the sort of stuff we've just been through. So yeah, as I just suggested. I'm not planning to go through these slides in detail. I just want to make a point here, if I may. There's something out there called extreme programming, which those of you who are from a technical background probably will have heard of, an IT background probably will have heard of extreme programming. And indeed, the name itself suggests extreme programming, that it's about programming. And it also suggests it's extreme. Actually, extreme programming is all about making sure that we deliver things at the right level of quality. So it's not about extreme speed or anything like that. It's about embracing change, and we have the right quality in place. Now, what we're seeing here on the slide, it's the sort of thing that's within here, and it's explained very well in a book called Extreme Programming, explained by Kent Beck. So if you are working definitely as a technical Scrum Master, working with IT teams, you need to read this book. But if you're working as a business Scrum Master in business agility, many of these things, although they use IT terminology, are as applicable in the business world. So let's just have a quick look at some. Continuous integration. It basically means that when we change anything in the business, we make sure that we're not breaking anything that's already there. So when we implement any new thing in the business or in the market or whatever it is, we need to make sure that, for example, our marketing campaign isn't totally destroying all the previous marketing campaigns we've done. So we're going to continuously integrate everything together to make sure we're not breaking anything. Test-driven development. Again, you can see that all code is guilty until proven innocent. So it looks like an IT thing, and it is an IT thing. However, it applies into the business as well. So what we need to do in a business is the first thing we need to do when thinking about producing a business outcome is write a test. How are we going to prove to ourselves that this business outcome works? Create the test. Once the test passes, what we're then going to do is refactor the product, the process, the outcome, whatever it is we're looking at. Refactoring basically means improve the design without changing the behavior. So we've put a new HR capability in place. We need to make sure that we're constantly looking at how that's designed and improving it without changing the way it works. Then you keep repeating that process. So in Lean Startup, which is another book I would suggest you might have a look at, Lean Startup, what we do is short experiments and then we pivot. So we get some factual information, we then decide which way we're going to go. Some more factual information, decide the way we're going to go. So experiment and pivot. So TDD is as applicable in the business. Refactoring, as I was saying, is improving the design without changing the behavior, always thinking about, does this thing, the design of this thing, does it work in the way we want it to? Can we make it more effective? Can we make our new onboarding process now occur within an hour rather than a week? Yeah. So it's, refactoring, again, we can apply it to the business. Emergent design applies to everything. So, the way we design the business needs to constantly change via the amazing Scrum Master. Everything emerges. So I've looked there at some technical ideas that are explained in extreme programming, but hopefully I've explained them in a way to help you to understand that these things are as applicable in business agility as they are in IT agility, even though it's called extreme programming. So for those of you who work as business amazing Scrum Masters, I would highly recommend you read that book. It's written in an IT way, but you will find it applies to the business. Once again, the sorts of measures I've got here, basic metrics I've got here, some of them are business related, some of them IT related. In the next webinar that I do, you will see I'll make all of these business agility related. So we'll have a look at the sorts of measures we need to have in place for business agility. As we move into the final bit of the webinar, so I've sort of run out of time. Normally I finish on time, but I've run out of time today. I'll just show these slides. And then we'll just come to it. We are nearly at the end, actually. So, interaction with the product owner. Key things here are making sure that the product owner has enough time to contribute to the team. And the big one is really that, the product owner is getting involved and they're not being too directive. The product owner is about describing what we need and the order we need it in. The team are about describing how and when. Sweet spot of the product owner is thinking about, the technical feasibility. The team can help them with that. The desirability, what the customer wants, and the viability from the business. They're going to be operating there. And then the relationship between us and them is really this. So the product owner is going to be looking at product success or outcome success. What we're going to be looking at is how do we do it? How do we make it operate effectively? And then lastly, service to the organization. Yeah, I've mentioned systems thinking numerous times in these webinars. I've also mentioned something called the Agile iceberg. This iceberg is actually something different we're looking at here. It's a systems thinking iceberg, and it's thinking about the whole system. I mean, systems thinking is basically about thinking about the whole system, that which delivers value, and thinking about how we change that system. So the mental models, the underlying systemic structures we have in place, patterns of behavior, not just thinking about the events. We think about what causes the events and how do we change that whole system to deliver value. I've mentioned this numerous times as well. Revolution, not really. We don't want to do big bang traditional revolutionary change. What we want to do is agile evolutionary change. So again, the amazing Scrum Master focuses very much on the right and not the left. So continuous improvement. Just an understanding here of what the business of the fourth industrial revolution, the modern world, is likely to be like. Well, we need the agile stuff that we're seeing on the right hand side of the screen there, the innovative, creative, customer centric stuff. But you also typically need some business structures to get efficiencies and stabilities in place. So it's likely that the business of the fourth industrial revolution is going to be very focused on business agility, but we'll also have some hierarchies and networks as well. Again, over the coming months, we'll be showing more on this on this sort of stuff. Servant leadership, I've talked about on previous webinars. Just to go back to that, just in case anybody wants to see the recording of this, just to see what I've got on there. So I'll just give you the ability to see that slide because we are over time. As an amazing Scrum Master, always watch out for conflict. Yeah, so the conflict can come from lots of different areas, and we need to be watching out for that. And then at the end of the day, thinking about everything that we've been through, what is the amazing Scrum Master? Well, I like this quote from Lao Tzu, founder of Taoism 2,500 years ago, so pretty old stuff. He said, obviously he didn't use the term Scrum Master, but basically the wicked Scrum Master is he who the people despise, or he or she who the people despise. The good Scrum Master is he or she who the people revere. The amazing Scrum Master is he or she who the people say, we did it ourselves. That's the amazing Scrum Master. They understand enough about what they're trying to do. They're self-organizing, and they don't actually realize that we as the Scrum Master are actually pushing them down a certain direction. That's the amazing Scrum Master. So it's the sort of thing I've been talking about enables that to occur. So that sort of brought us to the end again. Apologies, I'm sort of 4 minutes over. RadTac, just a little bit about RadTac. Yes, what we do. Learning and development, we have the largest portfolio of specialized agile training in the world, and we do anything from one-off courses to very large training rollouts worldwide across hundreds of thousands of people. Consultancy and coaching, helping organizations transform to this sort of stuff. Exemplar practitioners, providing Scrum Masters, product owners, agile architects, agile business analysts, so providing teams into organizations so they can act as catalysts for the change. They're exemplar practitioners. Training portfolio, huge. Biggest in the world. Yeah. We're spread around the world. So we work with many organizations around the world because those organizations themselves are based around the world. That brings us to the end. As usual, I'll sort of stay here just as we say ta to everyone.